Hello and welcome back to The Pulse, Medline's live in-booth news program from the SAWC Spring Conference in Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm Caroline Mattis with Medline. This is the last day of SAWC, but we still have plenty of great segments left for you. Find our entire schedule of today's lineup and view our past interviews at medlineconferences.com/SAWC 2018. And we're also on social media. Check us out on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and right here on YouTube where you're viewing right now. So now we're going to talk about moisture-associated skin damage, or MASD. It's caused when skin is overexposed to moisture for an extended amount of time. And according to our next guest, one of the best ways to avoid MASD is to incorporate the use of barrier creams and establish a skincare program in healthcare facilities. Kevin Wu is an internationally recognized expert in wound care, currently serving as the associate professor in the School of Nursing for Queen's University in Ontario, Canada. Hello, Kevin. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, and coming back to us. You were here on Friday, so
Correct.
Thank you again. So you have an extensive background in wound care. Can you tell us what drew you to this field? What drew you to this field of wound care?
Well, I think wound care is such an interesting area. Of course, we love the pus and blood and the smell and everything else. More than that, I think we can really make a difference for patient care, and we see very immediate result from the right treatment and right approach to wound management, skin management. I think as long as we can relieve the suffering that patients suffer, I think it's really a rewarding experience for me.
And you recently published a poster on the use of barrier creams and their use against moisture-associated skin damage, or that MASD. Can you tell us about your findings in that poster?
Sure. It's a post-implementation survey, and we actually have switched to a different product in the last couple of years from a petrolatum-based product to the more recently the Remedy product. And I think I just want to make sure that the end users, the clinicians, were happy with the product, and also patients too. So the poster, the key message was that it was very easy to apply. In the past, people were concerned with the barrier, with the moisturizer. It tend to clog up the incontinent material, the brief and the pads. And also, I think the problem is the frequency of application. Sometimes they have to apply 5 times a day. It depends on the incontinence. So with the new product, we're able to reduce the number of applications, and it's better for the nurses and better for the patients.
Absolutely. So what are the biggest challenges when treating MASD, and what can be done to overcome them?
Well, it's a big challenge. It's a very common issue that we don't often talk about, how to manage this common issue. I think I alluded to a few issues already. So a lot of product we use require frequent application. They don't stay on the skin very well, or they're very difficult to be removed. And the second problem is a lot of times patients may have incontinence. That is the main reason why they develop MASD. And the product we use sometimes can impair the ability for the pads or brief to absorb or wick away the fluid. So then you end up with a lot of more moisture sitting on the skin and create more problem for us. And the other thing is the cost issue. Of course, I mean, it takes a lot of nursing time, product time to manage this issue. So I think there's a multitude of problem. And for patients who experience MASD, it's very traumatic to them. The skin burns, it's very painful, they cannot move, they're constantly in pain. So it's a very disabling problem.
And you talked about skin health programs. Can you touch on why is that important for facilities to implement?
Well, I think, first of all, from a patient satisfaction perspective, if we can reduce the prevalence of MASD, I think, from my perspective, is a quality indicator in terms of how well we do to protect skin. I think it is a very important issue around cost reduction. I think whether it's Canada or US, I think we're facing the less and less resources available to us to manage care and maintain high quality care as well. So if we can use a cost-effective product and program, we can really address this problem and prevent problems from happening.
And what are some of the other consequences of not implementing a skincare program?
Oh, mine. That's a whole
loaded question.
Loaded question. So of course, I think there are literature suggesting if MASD is not managed well, it is a precursor for pressure injury and other more serious problems. So, I mean, for any pressure ulcer, any pressure injuries, it is very, very expensive to manage. And of course, the patient suffering perspective, I want to bring it back again and again, is huge component that people experience all this really nagging pain all the time. So if we can reduce that, if we can address that promptly, we can really prevent a lot of the consequences afterwards.
And what have you been looking towards in the industry? What trends are you paying most attention to?
Well, I think we need to think about a more comprehensive plan of care. It's not just about the product implementation, but I think it's the more comprehensive program development from the screening, identifying patients who need the product most, to look at education, educating patients, educating families and nurses and clinicians how to apply the moisturizer barrier, and looking at different ways of managing the incontinence issue, prevent MASD. Now remember, MASD could happen in a lot of different places, not just in the area where incontinence is most common, but also in around the wounds, around ostomies, around other places where there's a lot of fluid. So I think it is a very common issue, and we need to look at a programmatic approach and to evaluate how well we're doing, and looking at the prevalence of MASD from time to time and the severity using a standardized tool.
And we know clinicians and nurses, they are so busy. So how long does a skincare program take to implement, and how much time would that take for nurses and clinicians to follow up on?
Very good question. I think my famous answer is depends.
Okay.
All depends on the practice culture. It doesn't take overnight to change people's practices and the way they look at MASD. It took us a long time to really just raising the awareness around MASD and how it's been different from pressure injuries. So I think easily it can take a year time to have a established program implemented, from the education to introduction of the product to the education and evaluation and monitor the outcome of the implementation.
Well, thank you so much, Kevin Wu, again for being here right on the pulse. If you want to learn more about Remedy or any of the other advanced care and tissue regeneration programs and products from Medline, visit medline.com. Check us out on social media. Don't go away. We'll be right back here after a quick break.